If you like watching riding vlogs, motorcycle reviews, or hey, even listening to a moto podcast, you have Genevieve Schmitt to thank for it. Genevieve has blazed her own trail for basically her entire journalism career, from reporting on the seat of a motorcycle on the Speed Channel and earning the title of first woman to do so, to founding WomenRidersNow.com back in the early 2000s and growing it to an audience reaching in the hundreds of thousands before most people even thought about launching a motorcycle website. She's led the charge in the motorcycle world for not just women, but for any moto content creator. Genevieve wrote and covered stories from the female perspective, and hey, it turns out that a whole lot of other riders, male and female, appreciated Genevieve's work, sharing her opinions on industry trends, motorcycle legislation, and reviewing bikes not just from stats on the spec sheet, but how a motorcycle actually makes you feel when you ride it. There's a few reasons she's been named one of the top 100 leaders in powersports, too. Genevieve's toured the country giving seminars on introducing women to motorcycling. She's been featured on the History Channel, ABC News, USA Today, the New York Times, and she's scooped up quite a few industry awards, including the AMA's Bessie Stringfield Award. This is Genevieve Schmitt. I'm your host, Mark Long, and you're listening to Driven to Ride. All right, Genevieve Schmitt, you are on Driven to Ride. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to talk with you.
You're welcome. Nice to be here, Mark. Great to see you.
Yeah, thank you. You are coming to us from beautiful Montana in a real log cabin home, which is super cool. And you are a stalwart, I would say, of the motorcycle industry. But I want you to kind of lead us off and speak for yourself here. What do people most know you for, and what is your in your own words, your claim to fame?
You know, looking back over my 35-year career, I would say in motorcycling, I was one of the early modern spokespeople / pioneers of the modern generation shaping the women's motorcycling demographic. So I came to light when we were transitioning from magazines in the media, newspapers, to internet. And so I bridged that gap, and I was an early voice in helping sort of gather the women and make them into a viable, women motorcyclists, into a viable demographic to be reckoned with. We always had women's motorcycling, women who rode motorcycles for as long as motorcycles have been around. Since Harley Davidson started in the early 1900s, women have been riding. We know that. But I, being in media my whole life, saw a need to sort of gather and network ladies, which would then show the industry that women have buying power and women are a force to be reckoned with. And so through my media and spokesperson activities, I did that early on in the 2000s. So spokesperson, made my mark. And I'd like to think that the women I see riding today, the women you and I see riding today, they may not know who I am. Like, I didn't know who the pioneers were before me when I got started.
Sure.
But if you do some research, my name will pop up and you'll go, oh, that's why there's all these ladies riding. That's why women get recognized. That's why there's gear for women. Because people like Genevieve wrote articles about it and waved the red flag or the flag to the industry. Hey, you got to design clothes for us now. I was one of those ladies doing that.
There you go. I think we could also use the word trailblazer, I would say, as well.
I'll take it. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it and you kind of brought it up. You kind of bridged the gap between print and digital on the internet. And I think, again, you bridged kind of the disconnect between the motorcycle industry and women riders. So it's kind of a twofold thing. And I'm excited to dive into all this. But before we get into that, how did you even get into motorcycling in the first place?
Well, I was one of the people who did not like motorcycles growing up.
Really?
When a motorcycle would ride by, I would close my ears and go, that noise, those loud pipes, blah.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have any relatives who rode. My dad, my brother, none of them rode. But I was working in media. I was working for Good Morning America back in 1990, and I was assigned a story on more women riding motorcycles. There was a statistic that came out that more women were driving pickup trucks.
Okay.
So the producer said, hey, let's spin this story and do motorcycles. So I was assigned this story. I showed up at a dealership in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where I was living at the time, or South Florida, and rounded up about 10 ladies. And so I was just going in as a producer. But when I saw all these ladies, women, ride in on their sport bikes and their cruisers and then take off their full face helmet, and this one girl, I'll never forget the image, being a very visual person, her blonde hair cascading out of her helmet down her back. I said, oh my gosh, she's beautiful. And these women have a really cool energy about them. I want that. So I did this story and I was hooked. And as a journalist, I think even today, you may be able to go. I was able to go through the Motorcycle Safety Foundation course for free, complimentary, because they want to get journalists in to experience motorcycling. And so I said, look, I have nothing to lose. Go take the class, see if I like it. And I loved it. And I became a rider after that. So 1990.
Wow. So you were like an adult and a professional and you were like kind of on your way. You weren't like a teenager.
Exactly. And that's what I find interesting. A lot of these girls that are getting into it now are, like 18, 19, 20. Their dad rode and the dad was wrenching on bikes and daughter was in there helping them and got turned on. I was actually 26 years old working in full-time media. Motorcycles were never on my radar screen. I did have a ride on the back of a friend's bike in college. I'll never forget, I turned my head and my sunglasses flew off. I learned that trick when I was sitting on the back with him on a Kawasaki, but didn't spark me. It was just through that divine intervention of that Good Morning America piece that I did.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think that you maybe your approach to motorcycling was a little different because you came into it as an adult, or maybe was it kind of similar to somebody who started it in their childhood?
That's a good question. I still feel like at 26, I wasn't an adult. I mean, honestly, motorcycling helped me form my identity. I was as a news person, you and I were talking offline about being in radio, and I was into journalism. And so what drew me to that? I was seeking truth. I went into college to being a journalist, a news journalist, and you couldn't pay me to be in media today. I will say literally, you couldn't give me a paycheck.
Sure.
But back in the 90s and the 80s, when I went to college, media was pretty fair. Just give me the facts, ma'am. And so I was always a truth seeker. And so when I got in my 20s, I was also, raised Catholic, and I was disenfranchised with the Catholic religion and the Pope and all this stuff. I was not getting what I wanted from church. And so in my 20s, I was seeking, and I found motorcycling. And for a time, it was my God, if you will. I was like, oh my gosh, this is my identity. I'm a woman rider. And actually back then, I was just a rider. I didn't say woman rider.
Sure.
In fact, I don't even really like woman rider. We're all riders. I just happen to be a woman.
Sure. Agreed.
And I always like to tell that to people. Ladies will go, well, I don't think we need to separate women. I agree. Then Genevieve, why did you do the women's thing? Well, I didn't do it to give women a voice. Women have a voice. I followed my passion, and I'm a woman. So I'm going to naturally come at it from a woman's point of view, which tends to be the softer side of motorcycling sometimes. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm trying to raise the flag. I am woman, hear me roar. You motorcycle people need to know who we are. I really like to go on the record that I wasn't doing that. Yeah. I'm just a woman who fell in love with motorcycling and followed my passion of media, and they merged. And oh, by the way, a bunch of other ladies kind of wanted to do the same thing.
Yeah, I think trailblazer is a great term for that. Is you were doing your own thing and gained a following. Going towards the start of that journey, I guess, you went from Good Morning America, and then you ended up on the Speed Network. How did you kind of make that journey to Speed?
Well, so from Good Morning America, I went to California. I had stars in my eyes. I wanted to work in Hollywood and work for Entertainment Tonight.
Oh, sure.
I ended up getting a job at Entertainment Television in the early days. So I fulfilled my dream of meeting celebrities and getting behind the scenes of all the cool TV shows and movies. But then I saw the writing on the wall with that, and that was getting sort of salacious and in your face and invasion of privacy with celebrities.
Yeah, that was like pre-TMZ or just the start of TMZ. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So around 1996, 97, cable was starting to get bigger. There was more cable networks. Comcast, Cox were creating cable networks and the proliferation of more channels. So Speed Vision was a network for planes, automobiles, and motorcycles. And through my connections in media, because I was a freelance motorcycle journalist at the time, writing for Motorcycle Magazine. So through connections, I was told or heard that they were looking for female reporters. But if you happen to be a woman, that's a bonus. So I put in a tape to be a reporter, and I got a position on a new show called Bike Week. And it was an hour-long magazine show that covered racing and rallies. And I was the sort of gal that went around to all the rallies with my motorcycle and my microphone and reported at Daytona Bike Week and Arizona Bike Week and Sturgis and the V-Twin Expo. And So I started doing that and I had a blast. I was working like 60 hours a week because I was working my full-time job at Extra. So I had transitioned to the TV show Extra as a field producer in 95. And that was already, I looked at my old contract, that was already like a 60-hour a week job. And so then on the weekend, I'd fly to, say, Arizona, Phoenix, and do the Arizona Bike Week. Come back on Sunday night and then back in the saddle at Extra. But I saved a lot of money and I had a lot of fun, made a lot of connections. And that, Mark, is what made me say, you know what? I want to do this full time. I love motorcycling. I want to do this full time. And I quit my job at Extra, which I had a contract. Yeah, I had a contract, a 6-figure contract. I had to get out of it. And I was able to do that. Again, I was seeing the writing on the wall. It felt creepy to me to run paparazzi video of celebrities. And that's what we were asked to do. And having come from old school, it felt creepy and cringy.
Yeah, you just don't want to be a part of it anymore.
Didn't want to be a part of it. And so it was a really, again, I say I'm very spiritual too. Motorcycling got me into the Lord.
Okay.
I see a beautiful connection where God just moved me out of what I didn't want to do anymore, even though I was making really good money, into the beautiful world of motorcycling that really was such a blessing in my life. Motorcycling has been a blessing and I've embraced it.
Yeah, that's super cool. So then did you move on? Then you were full-time at Speed, or was that still like a part-time freelance thing?
Not like 40 hours a week, but it was a full-time freelance gig. So I had enough money saved up from doing that to be able to, and again, I was living in Los Angeles, renting, very high rent. I couldn't afford a home. Single woman. I've been like about 32, 33 years old, 34, and said, you know what, I'm going to make the switch. It was a big deal to quit a really nice, comfy job of Extra and then do motorcycling full time. So I was producing and directing pieces while the production crew was in Atlanta, Georgia. I would hire the crew. I would basically pitch them stories, or they would say, hey, we need you at this Barrett-Jackson auto auction, motorcycle auto auction in Arizona, in Scottsdale. Go fly down to that. Did I make as much money as Extra? No. I didn't, but I had enough money saved to bridge the gap till I got another full-time job. And I had a freaking blast. I had a blast.
Yeah. If you're having fun, I mean, that's half of it anyway. I mean, I kind of tell younger folks that you have to at least make enough money to live. You have to like who you're working with and you have to like what you're doing. And you can survive on 2 of those for a while, but really if you want to do something long-term, you got to do all 3. And it sounds like, working with Speed and then moving to Women Riders magazine was all 3 for you.
It was, and that was the Woman Rider magazine is when I started to get a regular paycheck, if you will. But the Speed Vision thing, I will say this too. A lot of people don't realize I was the first woman lady to be on a motorcycle on TV and riding around. And so there was ladies that stood next to a bike and posed, but I actually rode the motorcycle. We didn't have GoPros back then too. I rode the motorcycle and did full-on stories on TV. So that was my, kind of the claim to fame that nobody other woman had ever done that prior to me doing that.
So you're saying like riding and filming at the same time or on can you explain a little bit more like what the distinction is? I'm curious.
Yeah. So there was other shows on Speed Vision, but women were just posing by the bikes or just next to the bike, not actually riding it. I was the first one to actually ride it. I'd have a cameraman on the back with a full-on ENG news camera, heavy stuff. We're not talking this
shoulder mounted
stuff. Riding next to me in a car, while I'm going in the opposite lane so we could get the shot.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was doing, riding on the motorcycle, doing stories on the road that everybody does now with GoPros and all these sort of cameras, but we didn't have that back then. So I was doing that first, and I had to create standards for that and standards and practices for that.
Because I think vloggers, probably moto vloggers, just probably take it for granted now. You put a GoPro on your helmet, you put a GoPro maybe on your handlebars, or get creative or have somebody with a chase car or whatever, and it's no big deal nowadays. But yeah, I mean, to be able to do that with broadcast gear, like, my gosh, that's impressive.
Well, and where I live here in Montana, and I was telling you earlier, Mark, there's a beautiful road out here, this window to my right, where I rode on this highway on my motorcycle before I moved here. This house wasn't even built yet. So I rode, one of my stories was in this Highway 89 on the way to Yellowstone. And I had a cameraman behind me literally shooting over my shoulder going, I don't know, we were going like 50 mile. It's a 70 mile an hour road. We're going 50 or 40.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And he's like, okay, talking in my ear, move your head over a little bit so I can get you in the mirror. Like literally this heavy camera in the back seat. Nobody would do that today.
No, yeah.
And listen, was it dangerous? Probably. But at
Yeah.
32 years old, I'm like, I don't know. We're making history. I didn't even know I was making history. We just did it. We just did
doing
it.
your job.
Just did my job. And we got cool shots and mountains in the background and shots of me riding with, you could see my handles on the bars, but the guy was right behind me. So it's very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, that's super awesome. Yeah. That's, it sounds like you kind of got thrown into every aspect of motorcycling or rather jumped in with both feet, I guess I should say actively, from like races and traveling and shows. And like, usually like some people just kind of pick one lane. It sounds like you just, whatever was related to motorcycles, you were down to do.
Well, in the beginning, Mark, I was, because I was still finding my way. I was,
Sure.
I got the show, and then like they would say, do you want to go and take the Freddie Spencer motorcycle training class, road racing class at the Las Vegas Speedway? Heck yeah. I mean, I don't really have any interest of ever being a racer or getting on a sport bike, but I'll take the class if you're going to have to do a story on it. So I don't even know if I did. No, I did do a story on that one. Sometimes I just go to go. So I pretty much, I just loved motorcycling and I wanted to do everything. Now, as my story progresses, by the year 2000, I started to focus in on the women. And then even in my career with womenridersnow.com, I remember, and this is really good advice, because I don't just want this to be a show about me. And, I always like to say, what can I share with others?
Sure.
Now in my latter half of life, is that most of us can do everything or do a lot of things well. But at some point, you really have to focus in and say, what do I want to do the few things well and excel at that and make that shine to the top of what I'm doing. And so I had to do that with Women Riders Now. We'll get to that. But early on, I was like, oh, you want me to go there? Oh, you want me to go there? Heck yeah, you want me to meet that person? I'm in my 30s. I'm having fun. Like people are flying me all over the world. I got to go to Europe. I got to go to the Triumph factory in England. I got to go to the Ducati factory in Bologna. I was flown over there. Kawasaki brought me over to Paris. Okay, I'll go.
Yeah. I think that's a good piece of advice though too, is just if you're trying to find your own way and figure out what you really want to do or what you excel at, is kind of just say yes to everything, Exactly.
But also get in touch with your spirit. There were things that I said, I don't know if that feels right. And I can't think of what those are, but I'm sure there was something that I said, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. That doesn't feel right. And back then it was really cool. I sort of feel bad for all these YouTubers. They got to do it all themselves. I had a cameraman. I had audio guys miking me up. I had sometimes two cameras. We had money back then to do this stuff. I was sort of spoiled. So I wouldn't want to do, and just a transition, I'm so grateful to the ladies who have sort of taken the baton in the media and who are doing an amazing job in YouTube and spreading the word about women motorcycle or just motorcycling, but happen to be a woman. But don't make no mistake. They're doing it all. They're editing, they're producing, they're directing, and they might have a friend or a buddy or a husband or a partner who's helping them. But I know, girls, it's a lot of work. I see it.
Yeah. Making a living on it. One I can think of is a Doodle on a Motorcycle. She's been on the show too. And, and she's pretty transparent about it. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she's...
Oh, I watched your show. I just watched your show with her.
Yeah.
Lovely girl.
Yeah.
Lovely lady.
She's built a business out of it, and that's admirable no matter who you are. So, but kind of getting back to, you mentioned Women Riders Now, but before Women Riders Now, the website, you had Women Rider Magazine. Was that at the same time as the Speed Network, or was that a jump from one to the other as well?
Yeah, so there was some overlap there. So while I was at Speed, I had the opportunity to turn around a fledgling women's motorcycle magazine called Asphalt Angels. And that was originally Harley Woman magazine, which had been around since the early 90s. But Harley kind of got on them about the title, and then it started waning.
I was going to say, good, interesting choice of title.
Yeah. And so they changed the name to Asphalt Angels. The guy that owned Thunder Press at the time bought that and said, I need an editor. And actually it went through a couple of hands, but then he knew that I had been freelancing for Thunder Press, motorcycle magazine, newspaper. And he knew that I was looking for something to kind of supplement my TV income. And at first I said, I wouldn't touch that thing with a 10-foot pole. I don't want to have anything to do with a women's motorcycle magazine. But then when I was told that I could do it the way I want to do it, which is broaden it. First of all, we broaden it to go beyond Harley because women were riding way more than Harleys. and then also incorporate more lifestyle things with men. You know, a lot of women came into motorcycling because of their male partner,
Oh,
or
sure.
dad or whatever. So they gave me free reign. I ran that for a couple of years, and then it was sold to Ellert Publishing, which was the company that published the famous Rider magazine.
Oh, sure.
American Rider. Yeah, there was they had a franchise of 4 magazines: American Rider, Cruising Rider, and then I came in and they said, we're going to do this woman's magazine, but we don't like Asphalt Angels. I said, how about Woman Rider? It fits right into your stable.
Exactly.
They said, great. So we did that for 4 years. We did it quarterly. And what was neat about that, Mark, is it was a full publishing house. They had an advertising staff, proofreading, publishing staff, everybody, editing staff.
Yeah.
I was able to move to Montana and live in my beautiful log home and get a full-time paycheck being the editor of that magazine for 4 years.
So this is way before people like worked remotely or telecommuted or whatever.
Exactly. I'm glad you pointed that out because I was one of the first people and I embraced it. It was called telecommuting.
Yeah. Yeah. You and Peter Egan are like the 2 journalists I know of that were able to get away with that in like way before everybody else did. Again, another trailblazer moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I know when COVID hit and everybody was at home and trying to figure out how to work at home, I was like, really? 20 years later, we're just doing that? But obviously people had started to do that for a while over the last 2 decades. But so that was a real blessing. You know, I'm pulling in a paycheck. I had just bought a home with my husband here in Montana, and he was trying to build a business in Bozeman. And it was just such a wonderful, blissful time. It was a quarterly. So every quarter I would fly to Minneapolis we would say, put the magazine to bed, which is, get it to press. Mm-hmm. But I was still doing Speed Vision. And then also a cool opportunity that came my way was, they were running, that publishing house had an ATV magazine and spun off an ATV television magazine on on the Outdoor Life Network.
Okay.
OLN is the Versus network today on cable.
Okay. Yeah.
VERSUS, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, Genevieve, do you want to do ATV lifestyle stories, woman on an ATV? So I was doing that on the OLN network. Again, first woman to ride an ATV on TV.
Right. Yeah.
So it was just fun. It was fun. But, a lot of traveling. I was also, when I was doing Woman Rider magazine, so kind of a cool thing, Harley Davidson. I was thinking about some cool historical things to share with your audience. Some of the ladies that watch it might not know this happened, but Harley was doing garage parties. Do you remember garage parties, Mark?
Like dealer parties?
Yeah, they were dealer parties, but they called them garage parties. And that was in an effort to get ladies in the saddle of their own motorcycle.
Sure.
And I was asked by Harley Davidson to be the spokesperson at the dealerships because their women executives, namely Karen Davidson, everybody who knows Karen, she's the granddaughter of the founders and the head of Motor Clothes. She was too busy to be doing appearances at garage parties, dealerships all over the country.
Right.
And the executives were just too busy. So they kind of tapped me and said, I look like a spokesperson. I'm poised. I can be in front of an audience. I had to do a pilot program with them where we tested it. And they ended up approving me to go to dealerships all over the country. I got paid. And I was in the dealer network, the dealer internet network that if you're doing a garage party, here's all the tools you have. And oh, by the way, here's Genevieve Schmitt. You can fly her out, pay for expenses and pay her this honorarium fee. And she'll do this speech that's pre-approved to help get women in your dealership to buy motorcycles. And so I went to I think 50 dealerships over the course of 4 years. So I was traveling a ton. And that'll set
Which
me
can
up.
wear on you.
Yeah, I'm foreshadowing to your question of why did you get out of this business? When did you sell Women Riders Now? I'm foreshadowing that.
Yeah. Well, before, we'll start a little before then because from Women Riders magazine, you decided to go online, which again, you alluded to kind of at the very beginning, going from print journalism to the digital space and doing it kind of before everybody else did. So was that something that like you guys were looking at, Women Rider magazine and being like, oh, this, maybe we should go online because this internet thing is taking off? Or were you kind of like actively like, no, this is the direction we want to take it?
No, I'll tell you, it's a really good question. I love sharing this story is Ellert Publishing Group in 2004 for whatever reason, couldn't support Woman Writer magazine anymore. I don't know the numbers behind the scenes, but they shrunk it from a quarterly to a semi-annual to an annual. So I'm going, oh, wow, my job might be in
An
jeopardy
annual,
here.
geez. Yeah, okay.
An annual. And, again, I don't want to, I had some lovely bosses there. They were lovely guys. They supported me. They nurtured my career. I'd never edited a magazine before. They taught me.
Sure, yeah.
But for whatever reason, they decided to shutter the magazine, which means they folded the magazine. And so I was still on for a year because I was writing for Powersports Business Magazine, their B2B trade journal. And and I love doing business stories. And so I also at that same time, Harley Davidson in 2004 had just launched their women's outreach department within the public relations and marketing department. In fact, how do I know that? Because I was asked to apply for a position in that department.
Oh, okay.
But it would have meant I would have had to fly to Milwaukee or live in Milwaukee, and I had just moved to Montana. But that said, all the people there in that new department were very supportive of me. But I said to the publisher, I go, you guys are crazy. Harley is creating an entire department devoted to women, and you guys are shuttering the magazine. They could be one of our advertisers. But again, for whatever reason, they did. So I knew that internet was burgeoning. This is before Facebook. Facebook launched in 2006. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have YouTube. We had like AOL dial-up. Okay, that's what we
and
had.
MySpace,
and MySpace. Thank you. And I will give kudos to my good buddy Keith Ball, who ran BikerNet. He was the former editor of Easy Riders magazine for many years in the 90s. And he created in 1996, I want to say, really early internet, bikernet.com. And he basically moved motorcycle content online early in the early days. So, and I had written for him, not for Easy Riders, but for some of the spin-off magazines, VQ and a couple other magazines. So I knew Keith. And Keith took me under his wing. And so when I was ready to move to the internet, because I said, you guys are crazy at Ellert. I go, there's a market here for women who want content. And so I used Keith's web designer, who happened to work for Microsoft and who was designing websites on the side. And he built the first version of womenwritersnow.com. And what is Women Writers Now? It was a concept I had. I said, there has to be an online space to put women's motorcycling content online on a website. Of course, we had websites back then. And I was driving up I-90 on my way to Bozeman and thinking about this idea. And all of a sudden, the name Women Writers Now popped in my head. I couldn't do Woman Writer because that publishing company owned Woman Writer.
Still held on to the copyright,
Still held on to it.
Oh, and the web. Yeah, the web.
And the web, yeah. And I didn't want to fight them for it. I said, I want to rebrand and I want to do my own thing. So what happened was I had sort of been doing this in the background, and then I got my first ever pink slip, as they say. I was laid off from Ellert. And I was a bit shocked. I had a little bit of a pity party on myself because I was like, what?
Happens to the best of us, yeah.
I know. And I'd always been in control of my exit of every company. Meaning I quit on my own accord. So I have a pink slip and go, oh, we don't need you anymore, but we'll give you severance money. So I used the severance money and I gave it to that designer and I said, build me this. And I designed the whole homepage and
no way.
And then, and I have to tell you, I launched it in 2005, a soft launch in 2005, full launch 2006. And I watched all my print buddies because the motorcycling journalism space is very small. We all knew each other. We'd all be at the same press launches. And I'm doing this online thing. And they're all hanging on, watching their advertising dollars go down in print. And I'm saying, I'll help you move online. I'll help you get to the internet. No, that's not going to last long.
We don't need that. It's a fad,
Can you believe, Mark, people were saying that?
Only because I've seen it in and I am mostly old enough to remember people saying that, but I also do remember, documentaries and history videos about, it's just a fad. It's going to go away, or it's only a niche thing. So and good for you for being right on the money and seeing the future, man. Yeah.
Again, I look back and it wasn't like I had some magic ball or anything, a magic 8-ball that was giving me answers. I literally have been a praying woman my whole life. And I've literally asked God, please direct my steps. I'm more spiritual than I am now. I think as we go through life, we get closer to God, we get closer to the divine, But as myself, I knew there was something I just was like, God, I don't want to make any mistakes. You've guided me all this point. I was a church going woman. I'm still a church going woman, and
Sure.
so just help me to make the right decisions. And so I really credit the good Lord for guiding me and making decisions. I've had a lot of success. I've had a few failures, but not a lot. I've gone up some
Sure.
rabbit trails and I go, course correct. Not that's not going to work. But I haven't lost a lot of money or, I made very calculated business decisions. And I think, the whole career speaks for that now and in my later years. So,
yeah. Well, let's talk about women riders now for a little bit. Can you give me kind of a brief overview of what you guys covered, what you talked about? Because it's been around since 2006 as an official launch. So you're coming up on 20 years of this website existing and having a great legacy and a great audience. Can you tell me kind of what somebody can expect going to Women Riders now? What kind of content they can expect, or what you guys have covered?
Yeah, so it's basically modern day. It's you can get motorcycle reviews, gear reviews, advice on how to get into motorcycling. I started a beginner's guide very early on, knowing that there was really no one-stop resource to learn how to get into motorcycling. You could go on the MSF's website, but there wasn't one-stop resource. And what I saw, Mark, back then was the women's motorcycling demographic, and it was in the news a lot in the early 2000s because the Motorcycle Safety Foundation or Motorcycle Industry Council would do surveys of riders every 5 years. And so the numbers would come out every 5 years, and the women's demographic was climbing. And while we were always considered the fastest growing demographic.
Sure.
But I credit the good Lord with giving me sort of this bird's eye view of life and things in the world. And I saw everything was fractured in the women's motorcycling space. And in motorcycling journalism, everything was very fractured. So, for example, in motorcycle magazines, there'd occasionally be a review of a woman's jacket. Most of them were always men's jackets.
Or so it'd be scattershot.
Scattershot. And there was no consistent. There wasn't a female voice in the magazines. I will say there were some early voices that were in there, but they weren't in every episode, every issue.
Sure.
I saw Women Riders Now. I actually called it a network in the early days, a one-stop network where I was the feeder. So everything flowed through. Oh, there was an event. It would feed through me. Oh, there's a review. I would do it. It would feed through me. There's interviews, or there's a women made news. Somebody at Harley got a woman who got a promotion. Oh, let's give her a spotlight. It would go through me. So kind of a network. Then e-zines or online magazines became a thing. And I said, let's just make it a magazine.
Yeah.
Let's have an editor's column. Let's have reviews. And so then I started my name got out kind of from the magazine days. And I started get invited to press launches. So all the manufacturers invited me to their press launches. And that's where, for people who are not familiar, motorcycle journalists get flown to a fancy location, say Santa Barbara, California, and get to test ride the brand new bikes that the manufacturer is launching. And get on beautiful roads, have a camera and a videographer. Back then, we didn't have videographers, taking pictures of us that we would then use in our article. So I was often the only woman at these press launches.
Oh, really?
So, it was like the only girl. And even today, I mean, there's a few more, but there's still very few ladies doing this full time. I was like the only one full time.
Okay.
So I basically so that's what it was. We had a huge beginner's guide. And I really marketed that because we wanted to bring women into the sport. And how do you do that? Here for step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. I did that at the dealerships. How do you get into motorcycling? Step 1, step 2, go do this, do this. And we had it all outlined. Everything was very like system. I worked with the MSF to try to get people in.
Sure.
And then we did events. So then the AMA, American Motorcyclist Association, started doing women's motorcycling conferences. And I worked with them to promote it. Now, I didn't actually I helped maybe put on a couple panel discussions. I was a leader in the industry, so I helped market it. I helped get the word out about it. I do follow-up articles on it. And there was a fun time. It was such a good time. Women were so hot. I'd go to the trade shows and there was roundtables about women. The dealerships would want to, how can we market to more women? When a woman walks in our dealership, how do we make her feel comfortable? And I would intuitively just come up with ideas because I'm a woman and share my thoughts. And so there was so many opportunities, and it all funneled through womenridersnow.com. And I went to every trade show and marketed it. And I will tell you one other quick thing. I know I'm talking fast, but I have to give credit to some lovely guys in my life, some lovely people in my life, like Buzz Cantor from TAM Communications, American Iron Magazine, gave me an opportunity to have a column in his American Iron Magazine, which was the #1 V-twin motorcycle magazine on the newsstand. He worked very hard to get that on there. And he gave me a column that I ran for 7 years, from 2005 all the way up to 2012. Every month, I wrote an 800-word column.
Wow.
It was called My POV, My Point of View. And so he let me have the woman's voice in a mostly male-dominated magazine. And what that did, Mark, was I wasn't like a girly girl. I'm like a man's girl. I'm a guy's girl. You know what I mean? I'm really good friends with guys. And I basically, instead of letting them peek into a woman's locker room, I said, let me share with you what goes on there and why you'd love to ride next to us and why you should look at us. Or I would just share a story from my own point of view that just resonated.
Just from your own experiences or something.
My own experience. And I'm going to tell you another thing that I did. All the Cycle Worlds and the motorcyclist magazines, all their reviews would always talk about torque and horsepower charts. And there's a segment of guys and women who really don't care about torque and horsepower and how many miles per gallon. I could see guys at the I'll never forget when I pull up gas stations and guys are writing their little diaries or little journals of how much miles per gallon I just got and reset their trip meter. And I'm going, who cares? Like, I get it. I used to, but it's too much. I just want to enjoy, And so I would write articles from the lifestyle standpoint. And oh, golly gee, there's a whole segment of guys who like that as well. They just want to, they care about ergonomics. They care about, well, my shoulders are getting hurting. So what's a good handlebar setup for that? They don't really care about kicking the tires the way the hardcore guys do who want to hit on the racetrack. So I sort of solidified a niche with both men and women, just calling it lifestyle. And that's why I always said Women Riders Now was for women and the men who ride with them.
I love it. Yeah, you don't have to be a woman to get content and enjoy content from Women Riders Now.
Exactly. I never wanted to be, going back to why I didn't want to do a women's motorcycle magazine. I'll tell you why. The voice in those previous magazine was very, we are women, here we roar. Men don't read this, and would use the we voice. This is very important as a journalist. I was very adamant with Women Riders Now not to use the we, girls, us voice. I always referred to women as the third person, because when you would want to read it, Mark, I didn't want you to go, well, this doesn't speak to me. This is for women to women. Because when I read Motorcyclist and Rider and American Rider all those years, it was man to man, man to man, man to man. And I'm like, well, why would I do that?
Yeah, it's you know what? That's knowing your audience.
Yes. And so I got a lot of letters from guys, both from American Iron and sometimes through Women Riders Now, who guys don't let the guys know I'm writing you, Genevieve, but I really love your content. And I bought that bike because of your review. I mean, when I would get stuff like that, like emails from people, that just warmed my heart. It was validation that I was doing something right. And that's what, for people who are out there doing their podcasts or their journalism or whatever they're doing, I like the feedback. When you get feedback, that says I must be doing something correct. And social media today is all about feedback, the good and the bad. I quite frankly don't think I could handle all that feedback.
I was going to say that's feedback to the nth degree.
To the nth degree. You got to have a thick skin. So I knew that I was perfectly placed for such a time as this in the early 2000s at just the right time. It was good for me. Yeah. It was a good time.
Well, you had a hell of a run, and we've alluded to it a couple of times, but we'll finally jump into. You did decide to sell Women Riders Now and kind of step away. What made you come to that decision?
At the end of the day, I was getting burned out. It was motorcycles 24/7, and I remember when I made the decision, and those who work in motorcycling full time can attest to this. When you make the decision to make your passion your work, your paycheck. It's a real marked decision. And you go, well, do I really want to do this? Because it will become mundane. It may become mundane at some point.
Sure.
And maybe mundane is not the right word. What it became was, it just was getting a lot of work. I was getting older. I hit perimenopause. I had having hot flashes and all that women's stuff that I was dealing with in my 50s. But also, Mark, the motorcycle media landscape was really changing. So,
sure.
video was where it was at. So I started doing video a little bit. But I knew that if I was going to do video the way that everybody else was doing it and do it where it was all video
Mm-hmm.
and less writing, there was a lot of investment in equipment, in time, editing. And I knew the little bit that I was doing was a lot of work, and doing all the journalism, all the writing, all the going to press launches. I just, I'm in my mid 50s and I'm just going, I think I need to hang up the shingle here, take down the shingle a little bit,
Sure.
close the
Sure.
doors. I was burned out. It was hard for me to just go, hey, I'm going to go for a Sunday drive with my husband. He on his Road King and me.
Yeah.
Is there a helmet I can test? Is there a jacket I need to test?
Should I film it? Yeah.
Should I film it? And literally, my husband would be, I'd be like getting on him because he doesn't know how to take the pictures right. He's not put me in the, and it just wasn't fun to like do it all. And I couldn't get out of that space to like not work and ride. I just couldn't ride for fun.
Yeah.
I couldn't let go.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be wasting a ride. There's only, and especially where I live, there's only so many rides in the summer season before the snow flies. You're going, okay, I got to get this gear review. And then all winter I would do the gear reviews. It was just it was a lot of doing a lot with a little for a long time. I got tired. And I literally didn't ride for like a couple years. I think I rode once or twice.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, I just don't even want to ride anymore. I just need to take a break. The good Lord sent me some buyers, some lovely people to buy it at just the right time. And I was also wanting to get more into spiritual. I wanted to write more spiritual content. I started writing a column about God. And, a lot of people come to God through motorcycling. When you get out there and you're like, oh my gosh, this beautiful mountains and the scenery, there must be a creator. And we come to find our spiritual divineness through writing. And so I was being called and led to write about God and spiritual content and Jesus and getting saved and the gospel. And, motorcycling secular platform was not the best place to do that. So I was sort of feeling a calling towards that as well as I was getting older.
Okay. Well, all of the years of hustling and making things happen and doing all that, aside from the reader and viewer and fan validation, I just want to read you a little list. The Sturgis Motorcycle Museum Hall of Fame, the Las Vegas Motorcycles Hall of Fame, the American Motorcyclist Association Bessie Stringfield Award, and also one of the top 100 leaders in power sports. I would say that you made a mark on the industry.
Yeah.
Which, what is that what do those accolades and awards kind of mean to you retrospectively?
Well, thank you for asking, because I never sought out awards. I didn't really even know there was awards out there for motorcycling. Other than a few halls of fame. But even then, I was only like racer people getting in, and race tuners were getting in the Hall of Fame in Ohio. Let's just say, let's start with the Bessie Stringfield Award, which is a one award each year that the AMA gives out to people who are shining a spotlight on emerging markets. I got that actually years after I sold Women Riders Now. And I actually cried when I got the letter. It was a little typed letter, because it said to me that what I did mattered to the industry. I knew that I was making a difference with people. I was getting real-time feedback. People would see me at rallies. People want to take my picture with me. But when I got validated by the industry with an award for the Hall of Fame, for the Bessie Stringfield Award, and then the lists, the 100 power sport lists, it said, comes from your peers. And so it said I must have done something right. I must have done something that made an impact on the current and future longevity of our industry. And it's all I can say. It's very heartwarming, because again, you work in a vacuum. You know this. You work in a vacuum. Work by yourself. You're doing your thing. Once in a while, you get out. You see people at rallies. You get feedback. And another thing about motorcycling, those that work in the industry, it's the most amazing community of friends, people that work in the industry. Sure. Everybody rides. Most people ride. Yep. So you get it. You all get it. To have that pat on the back in the form of something that's permanent forever in the history of motorcycling is just so validating. And I think the girls that are out there doing it all, I wanted to mention Jess from Her Two Wheels. She's one of the early pioneers too, who's done a great job on the vlogging. I mean, just a hard-working girl. I see what they're doing, and I don't know how much money YouTube's paying you, but it can't be much.
It's not millions.
It's not millions. So if you're not getting the financial feedback, you're getting the validation, the intrinsic rewards from people saying, "Good job, Genevieve. You did a good job, and we appreciate that you brought more women in the industry." That's what I wanted to make sure. that I exposed motorcycling to a group of people that may never have heard about it or wanted to get into it. Because we want to grow the sport. We want to keep it alive for generations to come.
Agreed. Which, speaking of bringing more women into the industry, obviously spending decades of your life, working towards that mission. Do you think we are at a point where women riders are as commonplace as men in the kitchen?
And you were quoting my speech.
I am.
Yes, we'll just tell people I gave a speech when I accepted the Bessie Stringfield Award, which told me you did your research. I have we reached the point where women in motorcycling is as common as men in the kitchen? I don't think so. But I will say that we're getting there. And I don't really even know what it looks like. What does it even look like? I mean, women-owned dealerships, there's women salespeople, there's plenty of women riders. We're never, by virtue of the fact that motorcycling is a male-dominated sport because of the fact that it's a big machine. It's machinery. Okay, so machinery usually equals men. Let's just say that, ladies. Caterpillars, backhoes, machinery equals men.
John Deere,
oil fields, men. John Deere, motorcycles. I think that danger factor, risk factor, I think we'll never, ever be equal. And it's not that we want to be equal. It's just, I love where we are right now. It shows me when you go into a dealership and there's women's jackets and there's a whole bunch of aftermarket accessories that can lower a bike, make a bike more ergonomically friendly. I witnessed the development of all that in the aftermarket industry because there was a need for it because more women and smaller men were coming into the industry to ride. They needed that. So where we are today is such an amazing place. These ladies out there got it made. You don't know what we went through wearing Michelin, these big puffy jackets and pants like the Michelin Man or the big puffy, Michelin Man. I think that's what it is. The big puffy,
The tire guy,
The tire guy. That's how I felt. I remember 1997 wearing a gear that I'd gotten and it was so bulky. And now you guys got the cute jeans with the armor and
well, and I think another part that, and maybe you can provide a little bit of extra context with this is that even after like their motorcycle manufacturers and gear companies started making gear for women, it was either like really girly looking and had butterflies on it, or it was hot pink. And that was like your only choices. And that's changed a bit in the last, 10, 15 years. Would you agree or no?
I absolutely. And I remember the day, because I would go to the trade show when the pendulum swung all the way to pink. We're like, okay, we need more women's gear. So then I said, and a half a dozen manufacturers went, okay, here's the pink, ladies.
Let's make it pink with sparkles and
with flowers and roses.
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember I specifically did stories on that. I was like, all right, we have it, but is this what we want? Yeah. And so I wore pink today because I love pink. It's just not pink all the time. Pink doesn't represent women.
Right.
And so I love that the pendulum swung, but then it swung back. And so now there's a lovely selection. And I like having pink as an option. Some ladies do want to wear pink because when you're out riding, you can't tell if it's a lady sometimes. And I saw a girl the other day. She was on a really cool sort of choppery old rat bike. And I said to my friends, I go, I can't tell if that's a woman. And then I saw her little scarf fly. And I go, no man would wear a scarf. And his scarf was flying in the wind. And so I was like,
right.
Sometimes a pink scarf or some kind of pink on your gear shows that you're a lady under there.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, a little bit of acknowledgement, but I've seen it over the course of time too, is that it's gone from pink and butterflies and sparkles to kind of more traditional color options, let's say, but that is still an option. So
I'll tell you what, Mark, it was such a great time to be in the industry in the early 2000 to 10, 15 to 2015, right around there. I got out in 17. I sold Women Riders Now in 2017. So it was a really fun time. We had, if you remember, or maybe nobody does remember because they're still young on this now platforms, but we had we had nearly 300 motorcycle manufacturers. Remember that? We had California Motorcycle Company, Saxon.
Oh, sure.
We had the original Indian motorcycle. We had the Henderson, Excelsior Henderson and Buell. And it was such an amazing time. Big Dog Motorcycles, to have all those manufacturers going, because we were seeing double-digit increases in motorcycle sales in the 2000 to 2008, right before the recession. It was such an amazing time. And I got to be right there test riding all these bikes, and it was super fun. But there'll never be another time, I don't think, in modern history where we'll experience that. Someone told me it was 300 manufacturers, homegrown guys that develop bikes.
Yeah, that are doing their own thing. But I guess to bring it to present day, it sounds like you're still riding. Are you still out there being a spokesperson for motorcycles at all? Or are you just kind of enjoying being able to ride whenever you want?
Yeah, the latter. Being able to ride whenever I want. Go out whenever I want. I don't have to think about an article, a photo, no, nothing. But I will tell you, you did ask me, and I do want to tell the crowd here, because my other passion was skiing. I started Women Who Ski as a Facebook group in 2015, because I'm in the winter, I wanted to find people to ski with. That thing grew and grew and grew. In 20, we have almost 18,000 people. 3 years ago, I started offering ski trips because there was a demand for women to ski with other women. Go figure, just like in motorcycling. A lot of similarities. That grew and grew. I made a business out of it last year. I formed a membership. And then I realized it's a lot of work, a lot of liability. I said, I need to sell this. And I literally just handed off Women Who Ski, LLC, to a lovely friend of mine who's 10 years younger, who's ready to say, I want to do this, marrying her travel background with her love of skiing. And she's going to take Women Who Ski to the next level.
I think you've maybe earned maybe a season or two of just hanging out.
I'd like to do that, Mark. And you can see I'm sort of a high energy woman, and I need my world around me to be the volume to be down in order for me to bring my vibration down. Maybe reading a book, and just read a book.
Right.
Not even doom scrolling. Like, has anyone noticed how you can't even get to a book because you're so used to doing this? I'm like, I'm getting addicted. I need to I need to get onto a book.
I need a real book, like printed on paper.
Yes.
Yeah. And like leave my phone over here. And
do not disturb, shut it off, exactly. Gosh. So I'm actually enjoying this season. And I'll tell you what, I'm thinking about how I can share my experience and knowledge with the younger generation. I don't know what that looks like. Maybe speak to some of the younger people and share the 10 nuggets that I learned, because I've learned a lot. And there's things that I would do differently today than if I knew today about what I've learned. So, there's definitely, what would I do if I knew then, if I didn't know now? That whole, I'm probably not saying it correctly, but you know what I mean.
What I knew then if I knew now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Like that,
because, I definitely have 30, 40 years of experience that I love to share with people. So, and I want to help get new people in the industry, in motorcycling, in journalism. We need more ladies.
Same. Yeah. I think with all of that, I mean, Genevieve, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Thank you for being a trailblazer in the motorcycle industry, just I think in general, and making it a little bit easier, and in some cases a lot easier for the rest of us who are in this generation of trying to make motorcycling more accessible and keeping it relevant and all that stuff. And interested to see what you do next. When on your terms, when you decide to do it. So before we close out here, though, where can people find maybe some of your past work, some of your current work, learn more about you overall?
Yeah, so I did develop that website, GenevieveSchmitt.com, and my last name is spelled with 2 T's, Schmitt, no D. And if you just Google Genevieve Schmitt, it should come up. You put it in the search phrase. I have a pretty big, heavy web presence, having been on the internet since 2006. And on there, you can contact me through there. I believe I've got a contact us form. I'd love to hear from people. And I will tell you that I do want to try to build it up a little bit more from a historical standpoint. But having had COVID and long COVID last few years, that's a whole other story. Yeah. I had to take a little bit of a rest, but I'm excited once I put this ski thing off to the side, I can start getting all the digital content that I've done with women riders now online in a cloud storage, just from a historical standpoint. So that's where they can find me. Thank you for asking. I'm so blessed to know you, Mark.
Yeah, and we'll touch base again, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to Driven to Ride. Interact with us and check out full unedited conversations, photos, interviews, video interviews, plus other goodies on YouTube or Instagram at Driven to Ride Podcast. Or you can check us out at driventoridepodcast.com. And make sure you leave us a rating and review from wherever you get your podcasts, too. Do you have an idea for an episode or a guest, or you want to invite us out on an adventure? Email us, hello@driventoridepodcast.com. Driven to Ride is wholly owned by Flint Rock LLC, made possible with help from Matthew Miles, and written, hosted, and produced by me, Mark Long. We'll see you out there.